Welcome everybody once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. It's our Friday night around the NHL edition. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Matt, we're going to jump right into it. Lots of exciting games happening lately. But before we get into that, we're going to update everyone on the rash of injuries that's just exploded around the league. Why don't you update us on that and let us know who's out, who's coming back, and what does it look like?
All right, yeah. So a quick thing before we jump into all the crazy games that have been happening. Injuries, Colorado, they just keep racking them up. Nikita Zadorov suffered a facial injury last night and is out indefinitely. Philip Grubauer, who missed last night's game with a lower body injury, is listed as day-to-day. He tweaked something in that game against Dallas. Mikko Rantanen's still out week to week. The team said Colin Wilson got put on injured reserve. And also Nathan McKinnon, he left for precautionary reasons with an upper body injury last night, which was the last thing the Avalanche needed. But he is expected to play next game. So if you're an Avs fan, you can rest easy. Your entire top line is not out due to injury. The Dallas Stars suffered a couple big injuries. John Klingberg is out 2 to 4 weeks with a lower body injury, though to put it in this term, he sucked so far this season.
They are getting Andrej Sekera and Roman Polak back though.
Yes. Good eye there. But yeah, Klingberg, I think he only has like 3 points, a goal and 3 points this year, which is mind-boggling because usually he's around that 50-point mark every year. And they also lost Rupe Hintz for at least 2 weeks out with a lower body injury, and he's arguably been their best forward to start the season. Also, big loss for Winnipeg. Brian Little took a Nikolai Ehlers slap shot to the head, which cut him pretty badly on the ear. He needed 25 to 30 stitches. He has a perforated ear, and he's dealing with vertigo and concussion-like symptoms. So sending all the best to him because a slap shot when you're not expecting it and taking it off the side of the head, that's never good. And also sad news in Philadelphia, Samuel Morin will miss the rest of the season after he retore his ACL, which that's one of the toughest injuries to come back. Like we know, Robbie Fabry, we'll touch on him a little bit later. He suffered 2 torn ACLs over the past couple of seasons. So
thinking about it.
Yeah, it just sucks there. Also, the St. Louis Blues, Alex Steen will be out at least 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Tough news there. And lastly, with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chris Letang will be out week to week with a lower body injury. So some big names out there, but a couple that came back. Toronto got John Tavares back this past weekend, and they're expected to get Zach Hyman back next week, which will be good news as they started making some roster moves to make room for the cap space as they sent Nick Batan and Martin Marincin down to the minors today. Also, Tampa Bay, they got Victor Hedman and Patrick Maroon back for the start of their global series out in Stockholm, Sweden. And
just
also
to touch on Toronto, by the way, by them making cap space is a possibility. They might only be able to have a 22-man roster instead of a 23-man roster because of how tight they are to the cap. So
I know
it'll be interesting to watch and see what happens there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like it'll be interesting to see because I thought somebody might have grabbed Patan off waivers potentially, but he's just sort of like one of those tweeners or whatever because I know they sent him down earlier in the week for a game down in the minors, and he had 2 goals and 4 points in that game, just showing that he deserves to be in the NHL, but he just with all the logjam of forwards, of young forwards that the Leafs have, it's tough to get in that lineup. And just a couple other names I'll throw out. Alexander Texier returned to the Columbus Blue Jackets, while Colin White is in a conditioning stint down in the minors with the Ottawa Senators farm team as he comes back from a hip flexor injury, as well as Andrew Ladd is still on a conditioning stint with the New York Islanders farm team down in Bridgeport. And that will be another big decision that the Islanders will have to make as their team continues their 10-game win streak finally came to an end last night. But with that roster, they might not want to tinker with it too much.
Well, they've been hit definitely with the injury bug. They were able to still win. They still get a point out of last night's game, which is nice to see. But yeah, we'll touch on how good the Islanders have been playing along with some of the other teams here in a minute. There was a minor trade that happened, and a good trade I felt for Detroit, as Steve Yzerman from Tampa to Detroit now, starting to make his mark in the Motor City.
Yeah, so with the Red Wings being the worst team in the NHL right now, we can say that for certain. They picked up Robbie Fabry from the St. Louis Blues for Jacob Delarose. Fabry, he had been a healthy scratch 8 out of the 17 games, and in the 9 games that he played, he had only scored 1 goal. And while Jacob Delarose, he played 16 games with the Red Wings, has a goal, 4 points. He's more of a fourth-line guy, but for Fabry, I think this is a huge home run for the Red Wings. Especially in an expanded role. I know he scored his first goal with Detroit tonight, which is great to see. And if he can get back to that offensive upside that he showed before he tore his ACLs, if he can get anywhere near that, this is a huge home run for Detroit. Because he can play in a top 6 role, and now we can see that Yzerman's starting to tinker with his roster. We saw that he brought in Brendan Perlini earlier this season, and Adam Ernie from Tampa Bay before the season started, as he's trying to get a little bit younger, a little bit more skill and depth into this lineup. Because it's like I just saw this, like Detroit in their last 13 games, they're 1-11-1 with a goal differential of -36. So Yzerman is just like, it's like you got to be patient with that roster, but still you want to you got to try to help the depth out on that team as well.
Yikes. There was a handful of milestones that happened, including a standing ovation in Montreal.
Yeah, so Zdeno Chara played in his 1,500th career game. The guy's just a freak, man. But it happened in Montreal, and the Habs fans actually gave him a nice ovation. And with all the history that Chara has with Montreal, going all the way back to that Max Pacioretty hit, where they wanted to get Chara arrested or whatever, or sue him for the hit. It's just crazy the amount of respect that they still have for Chara, reaching that mark, 42 years old and still going strong. But yeah, a great moment there in Montreal, as I believe they are the best fans in the entire NHL. I think that would be on my bucket list if I ever do.
Although Vegas and Nashville might contend there. I think those are 2 other amazing places to play right now. So.
But just a great moment there. A couple other milestones for at least in the games played from Brandon Sutter for the Canucks is playing his 700th career game. Devin Dubnyk, who replaced Alex Stalock in the Minnesota net last night, got into his 500th career game for a goaltender. That's pretty impressive, especially where we saw how his career went so far downhill, and then he was able to turn it around to become a legit number 1 goalie. Also, for some point marks, John Carlson got his 427th career point, with passing Kevin Hatcher for 3rd most points by a Caps defenseman in franchise history. Carlson's now up to 8 goals and 26 points in 17 games this season. I'll be interested to see if he can crack that 90-point mark, because I'd have to do some research to see when the last defenseman to reach 90 points in the season, because we know we had Erik Karlsson get to 80 points. Mike Green way back in the day with Washington got to 80 points, but I can't remember the last time we've had a defenseman reach the 90-point mark.
Mike Green had 83 or something that one season.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Also, Alex Ovechkin, sticking with the Caps, scored his 136th career multi-goal game, getting 2 against the Florida Panthers last night. And that moved him past Mike Gardner for 7th most multi-goal games in NHL history. Wayne Gretzky holds the most with 189. But there's some great Hall of Fame players in front of him that he's super close to passing. He could pass potentially this year to move up that list. And I think that's about it for the big milestones. Oh, Patrick Marleau played in his 800th straight game That dates all the way back to April 9th of 2009. As he becomes just the sixth ever player in NHL history to play at 800 straight games. The other current player who's played 800 straight games is Keith Yandel, who's around the 811. Doug Jarvis is the leader. I think he's around like 925, somewhere in that range. So you're wondering. Yeah, so it's just crazy that he's been able to play that many games without getting hurt or taking like a healthy scratch or whatever towards the end of the season, get rested for a playoff game or something like that. But as I keep going through my notes, and just one special note, because these guys are the behind the scene guys. They rarely get the love, but Detroit Red Wings equipment manager Paul Boyer did his 2000th NHL game, and that was when Detroit played the Rangers earlier this week. So a lot of love, because those guys, with all the NHL teams, they go in, they make sure everything's set for all the players before the games and anything they need. But yeah, just huge love to Paul Boyer. 2000 NHL games.
That's incredible. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's been going on. Obviously, today launched NHL's Global Series. Buffalo and Tampa Bay playing back-to-back games in Sweden, of all things. Some pretty cool highlights on there about what happened. And why don't we touch on that before we get into some of the hot teams? And by the way, the Canucks just made it 1-0. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're recording this, trying to go multitask and trying to get in between the games. But yeah, Victor Hedman was the big one. People were wondering, since he was injured, was he going to play? Was he not? He ended up logging 25 minutes and 47 seconds of ice time, including an assist. And he spoke because they played the Swedish national anthem before the game. And I think that's something as Canadians and Americans that we take for granted when we play those anthems. And he said, like to hear that crowd sing the Swedish national anthem, he got pretty emotional. He said he was close to crying, but he didn't. But cool moment. And he ended up getting an assist. Marcus Naslund came out for the ceremonial where Hedman and Marcus Johansson, and the two Swedes, took the ceremonial puck drop there. So cool moment. And then Tampa Bay ended up winning 3-2 with Yanni Gourde getting the game winner in that game. But they play tomorrow morning, 10 in the morning Pacific time, for their second of back-to-backs. But yeah, pretty cool moment over in Sweden.
The NHL also announced next year's Global Series. Where is that going to be held?
Yes. So the first game of the season between Boston and Nashville will be played in Prague in the Czech Republic. And also both of those teams will have their training camps and play one exhibition game as well. Boston, I'm guessing, will be playing one game in Germany against one of the local teams, while Nashville will be playing an exhibition game in Switzerland, where Roman Josi will probably get treated as a god out there. The Swiss people love Roman Josi over in Switzerland, and also Columbus and Colorado will play two games over in Helsinki in Finland. We know a lot of the big Finnish stars there. Mikko Rantanen, of course, with Colorado, as I blanked. Sorry, brain cramp there. And then Columbus, they have a couple of Finnish. I know Jonas Korpisalo and net.
That's who came to my mind.
Yeah. It's great to see that going strong. And I'm glad. Yeah. It's still weird that it sort of comes a little bit in the middle of the season and not like right at the start.
It's very weird.
But it's great to see that things that the NHL is going strong in that form. And I'm not sure if there will be any more exhibition games over in China as well in the preseason and stuff like that, as they can continue to grow the game. But yeah, it's cool to see that.
That being said, do you see the NHL one day expanding into Europe?
Probably
not. I know they've talked about a European division at one time.
Yeah, I think just with the schedule and the travel, it'll be too difficult. Like I know with the NFL, like I know they have their games in London, and I'm guessing they're getting pretty close. I think to maybe moving the team to London. I'm not sure how close that would be, but But at least with the NFL, it's one game per week, so it's a lot easier for travel wise and all that to do all that. But I think with the NHL, it'd just be way too difficult with the time change and the condensed schedule to have a team over in Europe.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do it unless you had a whole division there. But road trips would be like 7 games long every time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't see how they could do it. But you never know. Never say never, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into some of the topics or some of the teams that are just absolutely on fire right now. Let's start in the Metropolitan Division. Both Washington and the Islanders are absolutely tearing it up. Although the Islanders, like I said earlier, they lost their 10-game winning streak last night. So
Yeah, but both of those teams are both still 9-0-1 in their last 10 games, which is just insane. Washington is now 12-2-3, while the Islanders are 11-3-1. It's just crazy what they've been able to do. Washington, we know their explosive offense, just running over teams that way, and Islanders, they get it done defensively with their goaltending. It'll be interesting to see because listening to Spin Chicklets, they sort of brought up what they think what Matthew Barzal deserves, because like in the system that the Islanders play, his offensive production is sort of limited to where he should probably be around like that 80-plus point mark. But in the way that Barry Trotz coaches the team, he'll probably be in that 60 to 70 point range. But it'll be interesting to see where his contract comes at the end of this season. But with the Islanders, it's just they with the goaltending between Varlamov and Greiss in net, and just being able just to get enough goals and play that smart defensive game. They've been really able to get off to that strong start.
yeah. Over in I'm drawing a blank, Atlantic Division.
Atlantic, there we go.
Yes. Buffalo starting their yearly descent.
Yeah.
Toronto starting their yearly rise after getting some guys back from injuries. And what can you say about the first place team there?
Yeah, so the Boston Bruins, like that top line, David Pastrnak, 15 goals, 15 games, 30 points. I know they're playing.
I'm hoping he's going to be the first player in a long time to get 50 goals in 50 games. It's been a while. I mean, the record, of course, is still Gretzky, 50 goals in 39 games. But yeah, it'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it's like between that, it's like well, we'll finally probably get our first 60 goal scorer since Steven Stamkos, and that was like I think somewhere around like the 2010, 2011 season, somewhere in that range. So it's been a long time, and then before that it was Ovechkin with his 65. I think that was like in like his third or fourth year in the NHL. So it's been a long time since we had somebody score at that rate. And then Brad Marchand had his second 5-point game of the season. That came against that crazy game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, where Boston was up 3-0. Then Pittsburgh came back and tied it, and then Marchand scored super late to make it a 5-4 game. But yeah, it's like, well, what can you say about that top line? We can bring them up every show, but just the way those guys play is just amazing. Then Tuukka Rask, amazing in that. He finally suffered his first regulation loss against the Montreal in the 5-4 loss there. I think I'm not sure if Pekka Rinne he was only I think the only other starting goaltender that hadn't lost in regulation. But I'm not sure with Juuse Saros replacing him in net if Saros actually got credited for the loss or if Rinne did in that game. So he actually might still be safe, even though Colorado, you missed that. They blew out Nashville 9-4 last night, including scoring 6 goals in an 8-minute span in the second period, which is insane. With doing that without Rantanen and Landeskog in that game, and McKinnon, he only played the first 2 periods. Had 4 points, a goal, 4 points, and 10 shots on goal.
Well, I knew it was wild when it was 3-2 for Nashville. They just scored to make it 3-2, but then literally like 30 seconds later, it was 3-3, 4-3, and then I saw the next score, it was 8-3, and I was like, man, and I heard, yeah, there's 6 goals in 8 minutes, just absolutely destroying Nashville. Just crazy. And of course, the Pittsburgh Islanders game was pretty crazy last night too. Islanders up 3-1. Pittsburgh comes back to tie it 3-3 and then win it in overtime. Great overtime. Both teams had lots of chances to score. But I like seeing this year how there's a lot of teams that are coming back being down 2-3 goals going into the third.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like I think like the Calgary Flames have been like the poster boys. I think so far this year. I think they had another one against Arizona where they were down late and then they got a couple goals. And who would have thought Matthew Tkachuk with the overtime winner once again there. And I believe Giordano had the game tying goal, but I know Tkachuk had the second goal to get.
He's in on everything right now because Gaudreau's had such a slump, but looks like he's finally broken out of that. Over in the Central Division, Nashville obviously had been playing good. Colorado had been on a bit of a slide because of all their injuries, but they make better on that with that game last night. But what about St. Louis and Dallas?
Yeah, so St. Louis is on a 6-game win streak right now, and I think the majority of those have actually been like 1-goal or overtime games in that span. Because I think the Blues goal differential right now is only +5, and they're 11-3-3. So it shows.
I heard a stat where they've been into overtime. I think something like 7 times already this year. So.
Yeah. Because it's because that's what I've noticed actually in a lot of their games. Like, oh, they just found another way to win in overtime, and it just shows like I think their experience just from last year that they're comfortable in those close games. Jordan Binnington. Super solid. And Jake Allen's actually been playing super well as well. I think that game in Edmonton, he had a really strong performance there. But yeah, it's just like it's like if somebody goes down with injury, they're able to elevate with Steen out now and Tarasenko, we know, being out, and just that defensive game, they're super comfortable there. And then going to Dallas after getting like 1 win in like their first like 8 or 9 games to start the season. They have now won 4 straight, and they're actually back up to 500 at 8-1. All their big guys up front are starting to click. Sagan, Radulov, Pavelski, all those guys, and they've been getting some depth scoring like Group A hints as I brought. But Dennis Gurianov is a younger player that's starting to round into form there. But yeah, that's like this was a team that I thought was going to make the playoffs, and I was actually surprised a little bit from their slow start. But I think as things go along, and you got some new players like as Pavelski that's trying to figure out his place, and Corey Perry as well. But they're starting to figure things out. I think Jamie Benn's still been a little bit quiet so far this season. That's one guy they need to ramp up. But yeah, great for Dallas there as they're starting to turn things around, move toward a wild card spot.
Yeah, in the Pacific Division, the top 6 teams are super tight. Everybody's still expecting Edmonton and Anaheim to potentially drop off. The other teams don't look like they're trending that way anytime soon. But what about the San Jose Sharks?
Oh, yeah, you want to talk about an awful team. I saw this stat earlier today. So this is the most teams goals against on ice for. Erik Karlsson and Drew Doughty lead the league with 29 goals against, and Josh Morrissey and Brent Burns are right behind them with 28 minutes. And this doesn't take into account like the amount of ice time and then also some crappy goaltending when it comes to the Kings and Sharks. But it just shows how bad it's been with those teams, especially San Jose. They just about blew a 6-2 lead in the third period to the Minnesota Wild as they had to squeak out a 6-5 win there.
Yeah, well, and speaking of San Jose, I mean, obviously, Evander Kane gets a lawsuit slapped against him this week from a Vegas casino.
Yeah, Evander Kane. So, yeah, going off the ice, it gets even worse. A lawsuit was filed by the Cosmopolitan. Try saying that 10 times. Of Las Vegas. They're alleging that he failed to pay back $500,000 in gambling markers which is not good if you're Evander Kane. I was just looking forward if somebody was gonna make fun and Photoshop or Ryan Reeves to Photoshop his face with the stack of money or whatever on that Evander Kane photo way back in the last lockout. But yeah, not good off the ice. So Kane actually has been doing pretty good on the ice, at least. I think he got his 10th goal of the season last night. But yeah, they got to figure things out defensively, and that goal thing, like Martin Jones has been awful. It's still crazy that how far he's dropped, because I think last year when we did our top 10 goalies, I thought I listed him as one of the underrated goalies in the NHL, and man, he's done nothing to back that up. But yeah, it's just because last year San Jose they had that crazy offense last year, which was able, as they were able to get over those defensive woes. But this year, they don't, and now we see them paying the price.
Yeah. Well, Matt, why don't you give us the final word before we end today's show?
All right, yeah. So just bringing up, I forgot to touch on Toronto there as they're turning around. They're on a 3-game win streak. Mike Babcock picked up his 700th career win behind the bench as a head coach, becoming only the 8th NHL head coach in NHL history to reach that mark. But otherwise touching on that, only 4 games tonight. I already got the Lightning and Sabres highlights up, and I'll have the other 3. We got of course, Vancouver taking on Winnipeg. And then we had Detroit and Boston playing, and then I believe Edmonton was facing someone tonight as well. I forget off the top of my head.
Edmonton's playing New Jersey right now.
There we go. That was the last game. So I'll have those highlights up tonight. And then over the weekend, we're pretty busy again. And then also we will not be back. We won't have a show. Possibly. We're working on scheduling.
Well, Monday's a holiday, so we'll see, because our regular scheduled time Wednesday won't work next week. So we'll see if we can make it up. Otherwise, we'll be back next Friday.
Yeah. So it might only be one show next week, and that will be an NHL Roundup edition if we do the show. So there might not be a Canucks talk next week. But if we're following up on the Canucks, after tonight, they'll be on a 4-game homestand starting on Sunday against New Jersey. So. And luckily, they survived an injury scare with Chris Tanev. He left last night's game against Chicago, but him.
Let me tell you then that he just got hurt about 5 minutes ago and left tonight's game. So he just stopped a shot, killing a penalty, and couldn't get off the ice. Winnipeg ended up scoring to tie it. It's now 1-1. But Chris Tanev went straight to the dressing room after because he could not skate, put any pressure on I believe it was his right foot. So
no, well, yeah, it's just tough. It's like we're waiting for the injuries to happen, and now they're all slowly starting to roll out. Though I'm happy Sven Baertschi got back in the lineup. Though it was at the expense of Adam Gaudette, as Mr. Little Things himself, Louis Eriksson, just seems to find some way to stay in that lineup. It just boggles my mind how Louis Eriksson stays in the Canucks lineup. But yeah. Otherwise, the highlights will be up over the weekend. Probably the rest of the weekend will just be the top highlights. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for all your guys' support. I know our Canucks talk on Wednesday did really well for us. So thank you guys for tuning in to all that, and thanks for all your guys' support.
Fantastic. For Matt Balzer, I'm Aaron Bloxall. Everyone, have a fantastic long weekend. Remember to support our troops. Monday is a very important holiday for a lot of us. So make sure you remember in the freedoms that we have today. Have a great weekend, everyone.